term load management has become such a hot button in the NBA.
How I know you were going to talk about that one. I never wanted to miss a game because it was an opportunity to prove. You know, the fans are there to watch me play. I want to impress that guy way up on top who probably worked his ass off to get a ticket.
From Trogs, my hot take, the mystique of MJ will slowly erode the more we see him on TV. Yeah, I was cautiously optimistic about seeing MJ on NBC, but when we immediately learned that it was just a interview that is just getting small snippets put together over different games and shit, I was just immediately uninterested in that. And of course, a lot of his takes were just like some old man yells at cloud stuff, like talking about load management, for example, as though load management is entirely up to the players when it is absolutely not. Also completely ignoring all the relevance of the fact that the pace of today's game is so significantly higher that players are just putting more physical strain on their body. That's why there is seemingly more injuries in the NBA now than ever, on top of the AAU stuff from their background pre-NBA. But I don't know. I don't think he can ruin his mystique, especially for the people who are just really big MJ fans. It's possible that people who didn't know that much about Mike will only see this and be annoyed by that, but I don't know that many people would actually be like, oh man, fuck MJ and fuck all this mysticism around him. Like I've definitely said before, and I think this is an underrated aspect of what makes Michael Jordan the legend that he is he has largely been out of the public eye and allowed his body of work as an NBA player to speak for itself. Then he gave some massive like 20-year gap before doing the Last Dance documentary, and that for the most part, I don't know, it didn't really change his legacy in people's eyes, so I don't imagine that this will either. It's definitely weird though, and I can't say that I care for the way that NBC has gone about this. From the G, hot take, the OKC Thunder will be the first team since the 2000s Lakers to three-peat or possibly even four-peat. Seeing as how unstoppable they are and how very few teams can match their dominance and how they have tons of draft picks and they can use more lottery picks, seeing how the Clippers are not in a great position. Yeah, oh man, I'm really fearful the Thunder will get a top 3 pick in this upcoming draft. But to continue the take, OKC will be able to use the draft picks, especially this year if the Clippers miss the playoffs, to bolster the team even further, and maybe, not even saying this will occur, get a top 3 lottery pick that will make them even more unstoppable. I fucking jumped ahead of you. And they will be able to combat the second apron. Yeah, that is a great point. The thing is, like, a big reason why the NBA has not seen any repeat champions, let alone three-peat champions in recent years, has been the new CBA, like the second apron rules and all that stuff. It's just made keeping together a championship roster really difficult, but the Thunder did that, and a lot of the issues that you will have from maintaining a roster can be fixed by just throwing draft capital at it, just being like, okay, we have a player who's making too much money and teams don't really want him. Well, let's attach a draft pick to that and we can get rid of him. Like they can also be like, hey, we need a role player here. Well, we have a bunch of draft capital, so we don't have to trade for some player who's overpriced. So yes, that player takes more to trade for because of how little money they make, but we have the assets to go and get some like amazing value contracts. So they're just in as ideal of a position as possible, not to mention their big 3 is really good and young. Shai is only 26 years old and he is the oldest one out of that trio. Three-peating I don't know about, but I do think their chances of repeating this year are very real, and I would say given how impossible that has looked in the NBA lately, probably more impressive than even three-peating in the 2000s was, but maybe not. I don't know. One way or the other, if there was any team that was going to do it in the 2020s, it is pretty obviously OKC. From Johan, or Joran, hot take, Jalen Duren finishes the season as the 3rd best center in the NBA, gets all-NBA 3rd team, and alongside an MVP caliber season from Cade, takes the Pistons to the conference finals. Well, I actually just put out a Pistons video yesterday that completely underperformed, so if you'd like to hear my thoughts on the Pistons, please by all means go check out that video. But Jalen Duren has been phenomenal this year. He's putting up 19 and 12 at the time of recording, and he's doing that in 29 minutes. His per 36 numbers translate to 24 points and 15 rebounds per game, which is absolutely nuts. I mean, right now with Joel Embiid gone, the argument or the place for second best center in the NBA is kind of up in the air. Like, I guess it's Wemby because Wemby does play the center position. So yeah, it's Wemby and Jokic. But after that, he's got to compete with like Bam Adebayo. Alperen Şengün plays power forward at this point more often than center, so I don't think he counts. Domantas Sabonis. I feel like I'm missing some obvious center here. Anthony Davis, if you consider Anthony Davis a center, but he's also played power forward recently with the Dallas Mavericks. So, I mean, yeah, I do feel like the third best center spot is just wide open right now. I don't know that he could eclipse Bam, who's probably the answer to that question right now, but it wouldn't be shocking to me if he did. Bam's been better this year, though, is the thing. He's actually hit more threes than any other center in the league thus far. Overall, his offensive efficiency has been better, and he's just benefited from this new Miami Heat system a lot. So I think it's possible, though. Jalen Duren's really, really, really good, and he is having a breakout season. From Big E, the Detroit Pistons, mainly because of the weak Eastern Conference, will win 55 games and boost Cade to All-NBA first team. Yeah, that seems completely reasonable to me. They are already 10-2 so far this year, so, you know, I'm not expecting a 60-win season, but at this point, I'd be pretty surprised if we didn't get at least a 50-win season. And you know, with the NBA, all NBA teams being completely non-positional at this point, I do think there is a decent chance that Cade can get in there. Like previously, like he's not going to rank higher than Shai. He's not going to rank higher than Luka. But I don't know. It could be, I don't know. It's really fucking competitive though, because then you have Giannis, Wemby, and Jokic to worry about. Like the NBA is just so ridiculously talented. So I don't know if first team is like guaranteed by that metric unless one of those guys ends up getting injured and just not being able to take the spot. But probably still second team, even if they win 55 games. But I don't know, it's possible. From KDOT, screen setting is the most undervalued skill in basketball. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. It's one of those things that when you notice a guy isn't very good at screening, it becomes hard not to. It was a big reason why Giannis and Damian Lillard did not work at all, because like the idea of a pick and roll between those two is nice, but only really the idea. It was also something that I've noticed with Victor Wembanyama that's been a little bit disappointing to me. Doesn't really commit to the physicality of the screen as much, and I think that's one final thing for him to really just embrace the physicality on, and when he does that, it's just going to make him all the more ridiculous. From Michael Jorbum, Stephon Castle has genuine All-NBA potential. He's an elite playmaker, finisher, and defender. He has a nice mid-range game. His only weakness is the three ball, but if he can get that up to league average, he's so amazing with everything else that I think he could be like a 25-9 guy alongside Wemby at his peak. I'm going to have to disagree on a few points that you've made there. Not that I disagree that Stephon Castle is awesome, because I absolutely think that he is. He's an absolute dog going to the rim and defensively. Where I disagree is the notion of 25-9, because I just don't think he's going to average 9 assists if Dylan Harper or De'Aaron Fox are on that roster. And though I do think it's likely one of those guys ends up getting moved, I don't think Stephon's ever going to be the primary ball handler to the point where he's averaging 9 assists per game. I also wouldn't personally label him as an elite playmaker. I think he is a good one. I don't know if I would use the word elite. I think people throw that word around a little bit too much when it comes to playmakers just because they have good assist numbers. But otherwise, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I do think that he has perennial all-star potential. Fucking ridiculous that the Spurs have him and Wemby and Dylan Harper and De'Aaron Fox. Like, the league might be in trouble pretty soon. It's probably going to be a Spurs versus Thunder thing for like the next at least half decade. From Tijin TG, the Phoenix Suns have unlocked the power of friendship and will make the conference finals like the Pacers did in the 23-24 season, and will make the finals like the Pacers did in the 23-24 season. I have actually really enjoyed the Phoenix Suns this year. I find them far more enjoyable than the last couple of years, and I feel like that should be evidence of something that I say all the time and people choose not to believe me, that I do not hate organizations. I just often really dislike certain rosters. I really liked the Phoenix Suns in 2021. I really fucking hated them with Kevin Durant, and especially Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. And I really like him now this time around because Devin Booker is the full Devin Booker, no amount of reservation. He is gunning all the time. I've really enjoyed the one game that we got from Jalen Green. Mark Williams has been fun. Ryan Dunn has been really good outside of his three ball. Grayson Allen, I'm even kind of enjoying watching, which is something that I never thought that I would say. I don't know that a conference finals appearance in that Western Conference is doable, though. If you told me that the Suns in the East could do it, then maybe that's plausible. But I still don't think they will be much better than 500, which puts them in the play-in conversation. And they might make the playoffs, but to make a conference finals from there, like, it would be shocking if the Phoenix Suns were a top 4 seed, which means you're not going to have home court advantage, and you're going to have to deal with the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Rockets, and even the Lakers have looked so damn good that I'm really not sure that the Suns could beat them. So I do like this Suns team. I really can't go that far. From just making an observation, Brandon Pajimski is the most cocky role player of our modern generation. He was asked in a recent interview, what did you work on this summer? And he said, my leadership. Yeah, he also said the I want to be better than Steph thing, which on one hand, absolutely, it's good to be like, yeah, I want to be the best of the best. But on the other hand, I mean, that's not going to fucking happen. That's like borderline delusional. It's good to have a certain amount of delusion in the NBA, but you certainly do not want to let that delusion bleed into your play style. And I gotta say, I can't stand a lot of decisions that Podz makes on the floor, especially in terms of hunting for his own shot. And I'm not being for real when I say this, but just 5% of me goes, feels like there's a little bit of white privilege there with him, because Steve Kerr, the moment Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga make a single fucking mistake, they are getting sent to the bench. But Podz can just make mistake after mistake after mistake, and he stays in the game. I did not buy this notion that he was some super coveted asset a couple of years ago, and he definitely ain't that now. Saying you worked on your leadership in the offseason is weird. What the fuck does that even mean? Are you doing drills? A guy missed a shot. Okay, go say something nice to him to make him feel better. Like, what? How do you even train that? Did you just watch a bunch of podcasts? I have no fucking idea. From TV Wuspy, what a name. Even though it was well-deserved and a long time coming, Nico Harrison's firing will have a negative impact on the league, as GMs now will hesitate to take risks/big swings to try and win a title. So moves like Paul George and Westbrook being traded by OKC in the same offseason, or DeRozan being traded for 1 year of Kawhi, might not happen anymore. Well, I do gotta say this, the Paul George and Russ example is not good, because they were going to get traded one way or the other. Paul George asked to be traded. Like, that wasn't the Thunder choosing to do that. Paul George wanted out, and then from there they were like, yeah, the Russell Westbrook era has kind of run its course, so we're gonna trade him too. I think there was even like a mutual agreement that Russ wanted to get traded on top of that. So I don't know about that example, but like DeRozan for Kawhi, that was definitely a big swing, but it was well understood that DeMar DeRozan had more or less hit his ceiling, and I believe he was like, what, 28 or 29 when that trade went down? I will look that up real quick just to be sure. Yeah, he was 28 years old. His stats had not, he had a 27 point per game season before that, but his numbers went down after that. He also continually failed in the playoffs, where in the case of Luka, he was 24, soon to be 25 when that trade went down, and he had just got them to the finals. Like, I don't really think this is comparable, because no one has ever taken a swing on that scale and also been so obviously wrong when they did it. Like, sure, there were some criticisms from Masai Ujiri whenever he took that trade. However, still there were people like, I completely get why he went for this. Like, it makes sense. There was no one even at the time who thought that what the Luka trade was made any level of sense. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were some people who thought it made sense, but there's always contrarians out there. I just don't know that that's true. I still think that GMs will make major swings. I still think that teams that are in desperate need of a shakeup will make said shakeup. Like, I don't know. I think that's a reach. I think Nico Harrison and the Luka Doncic trade is such an extreme outlier example that I wouldn't really go around comparing it to anything else. From Alpha Brother, good name, bro. Brunson is not that guy. Small guards being your number one scoring option almost never works unless your name is Stephen Curry. Guys like Brunson, Trae Young, and D. Mitch, who are being asked to be the number one option, won't win a championship that way. I do want to say something about Donovan Mitchell. I do think that his height undersells the physicality of him because he has really long arms. I think he has a near 7-foot wingspan. And he is like fucking jacked. He is not easy to move at all. Like, he's a really strong guard, even if he's 6'1", where with Brunson and especially Trae Young, they don't so much have that on their side. Brunson's stronger than you would guess, but he's still not like D-Mitch strong. That said, this is historically true in terms of winning a championship. Steph Curry and Isaiah Thomas are the only guys who have been a small guard and been like clearly the best player on their team and won a championship. You can argue Chauncey Billups, but I don't think Chauncey Billups was like leagues ahead of everyone else on that Pistons team. And like Tony Parker was the best player on the 2007 Spurs, but like barely, like by a sliver. So like in terms of just being the clear 1A option, being a small guard historically does not work out for you. However, I do think Jalen Brunson specifically is so fucking good at it that if there was a guy who was going to achieve it, it would be him. And like, it's not like the Knicks have the option to trade Brunson for Giannis or something. Like, they have to stick with him. So can't blame them for just trying to maximize the window with him. Will it ultimately be a futile effort? Probably. The history would suggest that's the case. But, you know, just because something has only been done in a very sparing amount of times in the past does not mean that it can't be done again. It's also worth mentioning that point guards are better now than they have ever been in basketball. Historically, point guard was one of the most definitive role player positions in the NBA. Nowadays, that's not the case at all. And I do think there is a higher likelihood of a small guard winning in today's game than in most of NBA history before it, just because of the spacing and the rules that are more in favor of smaller guards as opposed to the rules of the 90s and the 80s. From Jesse, Trae Young is holding back the Atlanta Hawks, and if they continue with him as their primary option after his return from injury, they will fall into the play-in tournament and might not even make the playoffs at all. He is shooting a career-worst 37% from the field and an even poorer three-point percentage at 19%. Leading to his lowest scoring season as young as it is in his career. That line confused me because I thought you were referencing his name. All while this team is pretty much engineered to perfectly fit him. The Hawks are 4-2 without him, and while they remain inconsistent as expected of the Hawks, they look great in their wins now with Jalen Johnson as the primary option, not to mention how improved their defense looks without Trae. I am not a Trae hater, but I think it's time that the team starts deferring to Jalen Johnson as the primary option. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a they're better off with Trae thing. It could just be that Jalen Johnson should be a bigger part of the offense and Trae Young should be focusing more on setting him up than looking for his own shot. I think that is valid. A big thing about their recent success, they haven't played the best teams by any means in order to do that. Jalen Johnson just had a fucking crazy game the other day where he had a triple-double with like 13, 14 assists and 7 steals, just absolutely wild shit. But the Hawks, ultimately, I don't think they end up being like a contending level team without Trae. And I will say this is an extremely small sample size with him to this point, so I don't think it's all that fair to hold it against him. Not to mention, Trae Young has had these cold spells, especially early into seasons before. So I would give it time and actually see what this team looks like with and without him with a larger sample before I come to that conclusion. But I don't blame you from doing the classic, like, oh, is this the Patrick Ewing effect? From Morgan, the Shai Paul George trade is still the worst trade in NBA history. The Luka trade was more shocking, but the Thunder will still be picking in the lottery despite being the best team in the NBA from all of the Clippers picks. I get where you're coming from. However, I think personally, yes, how a trade ages does have a lot to do with the perception of said trade. And like, yeah, the Thunder still benefiting from that deal to this day is kind of nuts, like still getting picks out of it for this upcoming draft. However, I think if the trade is just so clearly dumb the day that the trade goes through, that ultimately makes it a worse trade. Like the logic in 2020 when the Clippers made that, or I guess it would have been 2019 when they made that trade, the logic was sound. It was a lot to give up for Paul George, but it wasn't just for Paul George. It was also so that Kawhi Leonard would sign with the team. So I don't blame them for being like, yeah, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are still like, I think they are just over 30 at that point, around that. So like they're 29, 30 years old. They still have a pretty big window where they can compete together. And yeah, we're trading away our future, but we can win a championship right now with these guys. I think that logic maintains. It just didn't work out because they're the Clippers. It didn't work out because they're the Clippers. I can't say that that trade is worse than the Luka deal just because it at least actually made sense when it happened. From Same CC, the Miami Heat are making a mistake trying to be competitive this season. Instead of being a bad team, this year's draft is way too good to be competitive now. They should have been trying to get a franchise player that can kick off a full-blown rebuild instead of being a fun, mediocre team with no superstar player/prospect on the team. I mean, I don't know that he's a superstar prospect, but like Jaime Jaquez is pretty good. I could maybe see him being an all-star one day. I'm really high on Khalil Ware, another guy who I could see being an all-star one day. But I don't disagree fully. The thing is, like, it's kind of lame to be the guy who's like, you should be tanking instead of being mid. But it's also true. Like, I'm kind of tired of having that take just because it's the boring, generic, basic opinion. But it's also a pretty basic, common opinion for a reason because it is largely a correct thing to say. But the Miami Heat are fun. I enjoy watching them like this, so I'd prefer if they didn't go that way. I can't blame you for feeling that way, though. From Vedant Paramish, Will Richards, the rookie on the Warriors, will be considered a top 5 rookie from this class at the end of this season. With how good he is defensively with great hands, three-point shooting, amazing slashing and finishing, along with the great rebound timing by using athleticism to steal offensive boards or tipping them to teammates. And finally, he's calm under pressure as shown in the college championship game. I don't know what the fuck he did in college, but Will Richards, I have really enjoyed from the Golden State Warriors. He seems like a home run draft pick. I don't even know where exactly he got drafted, but it would have been outside of the lottery. Yeah, he just looks awesome. He fits right into the Warriors system. He's a good defensive player. He hustles a lot. He seems really strong for a smaller guy. I don't think he's like small, but he definitely is smaller. Will Richards' height. Yeah, he's 6'4", but he plays bigger than that. I think he is a great draft pick. I don't know if he'll end up being a top 5 pick from this draft, but I can absolutely get behind him being one of the better picks for sure. Like I'm with you there for sure. Said for sure too much. From Jokic Glazer, when J-Dub comes back, he'll make the Thunder worse. Last season without J-Dub, they were 13-0, and now they're 12-1. That's a combined 25-1, which would be on pace for 79 wins. In addition, he had a negative 12.6 on-off net rating. They literally had a better net rating last year without both Shai and J-Dub than with both of them because of how much worse J-Dub makes them. By the way, they were a plus 23.3 net rating with Shai and without J-Dub. Shai averages 40.6 rebounds and 7 assists on 67% true shooting with only 3 turnovers per 75 possessions last year when J-Dub wasn't on the floor. The most overrated player in the NBA. A Jokic Glazer being a calculator boy? Who could imagine that? Who could have predicted something like that? This is the type of shit that I'm like, there's people who genuinely think that I'm like this just because I use on-off numbers sometimes. No, the Thunder are not better without J-Dub. I don't care what fucking advanced stat you show me. It is a ridiculous notion. Not to mention, like you say, Shai averages 40 points per 75 without him. That's cool. You think Shai is going to average 40 points throughout the entirety of a year, and that's going to be a good method of winning for this team? That's just absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, I cannot even begin to wrap my mind around just finding every advanced stat possible to be like, oh yeah, this remarkably talented, versatile defender who's a very good finisher and a pretty good jump shooter and a really good secondary playmaker and ball handler. Yeah, that guy secretly sucks. No, the eye test trumps all of that bullshit you just said. From Kana, nothing will happen to the LA Clippers. The NBA will do nothing that will attract negative attention to them. Yeah. I mean, they seem to be self-destructing on their own, so something will happen to the Clippers. I just don't know if it'll be related to aspiration and all of that. But yeah, definitely, I don't know. It feels like the NBA is not going to do much unless like other criminal organizations outside of them end up actually doing something about it. And by criminal organization, I mean like fighting crime. If you want to call the NBA a criminal organization, go right ahead. Anyways, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.